Welcome to the SoCal Real Estate Development and Syndication Podcast, from blueprints to skylines, where we interview the go-getters in the industry. I am your host, Peter Berkoff. Today's guest is Stace Caseria, a real estate investor, capital raiser, and marketing and brand expert at Trusty Brand Consulting. Thanks for coming on, Stace. How are you?
I'm doing great, Peter. How are you this morning?
Great, great. Thanks for coming on. Uh, Looks like you wear many hats. Can you tell everyone about yourself and your company?
Sure. Yeah. So I do wear many hats. So my career is in marketing. I own a small branding and market development agency. I've been doing this for about 25 years. And so we work with usually small to medium-sized businesses. We help them with brand strategy, naming, logo, visual identity. Sometimes we even work with real estate companies. We helped rebrand one of the larger syndicators out in California, Realty Mogul. So we did that, helped them rebrand in 2017, 2018. But I've also invested in real estate for the past 20 years. It started with my family's portfolio of single family homes. We had some duplexes. And when I learned about apartment syndication through my work with Realty Mogul, like 6 or 7 years ago, I said, "Wow, this is great." I mean, I always understood the value of investing in real estate, but when I saw that there was a way to do it at a different level, I said, "Let's start selling some of the singles that we have and investing in syndications." And so that's what I've been doing since. Started as an LP on a number of deals, started to see how I could get involved at a higher level, raising capital, and then also a co-GP on a deal. So I'm continually trying to move the needle forward, as they say.
Yeah, I like to dive in some of those marketing questions and branding. Uh,
Mm,
what makes up marketing and branding? What makes it up? What is it? Can you
sure.
talk to us about that?
Sure. So there are two distinct things. Your marketing and your branding are two related but distinct things. So think of marketing as everything you're going to do to promote your business or your brand. So that might be advertising, it might be a website, it might be a sales event, it might be like a trade show, it might be emails, it might be coffee, having coffee with a prospective client. That's all marketing. Brand is the foundation that you're going to create to go out and do that marketing. So think of the foundation as, what does our company stand for? What are we here to achieve? What are our goals? How do we talk? How are we different from other people? When we build that foundation, we're able to go out and do advertising in a certain way that aligns with our brand. And if we go out and build a website, well, we're able to do it so that it looks like our brand and it sounds like our brand and it talks about the core message from our brand. Think about like the foundation of a building or a house.
Yeah.
That's branding. But everything on top of that is your marketing. So like the framing, the siding, the windows, the roof, all of those things are built on a foundation of branding. So they're related, but not exactly the same thing. And I prefer to work in branding because I'm able to work more closely with people who are starting businesses, people who are growing businesses, and work directly with the leaders, the business leaders, to help them establish what I think is the most important part of their marketing stack, which is that brand foundation or brand strategy.
How do you show what you stand for? Like, how do you show that in your logo or your platform or your brand?
See, that's a good question. That's not a real
Yeah.
estate question. That's a good marketing question.
Yeah.
So the way that we do the process is there are three distinct phases, right? So there's discovery, where we work directly one-on-one with our clients to understand what they want to achieve in the world through their business, what they can offer the business, what they can do that's different. So that's discovery. And I'll tell you that most founders, I guess every founder that I've ever worked with has the answer somewhere inside of them. The difficult part is always being able to get it up and out. They have to be able to put words to it. And that's something that's very difficult. It's not necessary though. If you're a one person operation, if you're the only person working at your company, you don't need to tell anybody else how to do the thing you do because your actions are going to be your brand. So the way you decide to, work with customers or serve customers or, talk to advertisers or whoever, that is going to be directly related to your business's DNA. The difficulty happens when you have multiple people in your group or your company or you're
uh,
expanding.
yeah.
Then you're like, okay, how do I convince these other people that these are the ways that we need to talk to people, or this is the way we need to, go out and build our brand? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. It's so you're a psychologist too. You have to dive into the person's mind. What do you stand for? What's going on in your life? What's going on? What
Actually,
are you
it's
trying to
it's
do?
funny that you say that because I consider it like brand therapy. So there's never been a brand session where we haven't gotten to the end of it and people feel a sense of relief
Yeah.
because they're able to, and they think that I'm doing something special and I'm just the facilitator, right? So they have all the answers. They just don't know the questions to ask themselves to get those answers out. So I mentioned there are three parts. There's discovery. The second part is definition. So we need to take all the everything we get out of you, and it's just raw material at that point. We need to define it and say, okay, if you're a home builder and you believe in X, Y, and Z, how should that come across as your brand? Or like you said, even your logo, like the things you believe in, what should that look like in a logo? What should it sound like in a name? What should your website come across as because you believe in these certain things? Every single human being is an individual. Every single business can have an individual personality, and that's the best thing to do is to really find something to differentiate yourself, and it's going to come from the founder's own personal beliefs.
Yeah, I don't plan to make it easy for you. I'm gonna ask you some tough questions today. So
Good,
you're in the hot seat.
good.
uh, is capital raising, is branding strategies for capital raising and selling jewelry the exact same thing, or no?
Yeah, it's not the same, but it's related, right? So, as somebody who works in branding who
Yeah.
loves real estate, I've tried to merge these two passions, over the past, 7 or 8 years, trying to find ways to bring what I do to the real estate world because I just absolutely love investing in real estate. I have trouble doing that sometimes because I think a lot of people in real estate don't see the value in marketing. So if you were selling like a consumer product, like I have some sunscreen here, like if you were selling this consumer product, you would say, "Oh yeah, we absolutely understand that we need, a good logo, we need a good package design, we need to stand for something different because there are 100 different sunscreens on the shelf, and we need to stand apart." A lot of real estate professionals say, it has less to do with me and more about the property or more about the deal. And I think that's absolutely wrong. And it's just a difficult thing to convince um, investors of or syndicators of. And I'd say to them, take a brand like Joe Fairless. And if you guys aren't familiar, if your audience isn't familiar, Joe Fairless started an entire brand where he educates people through a podcast, through ebooks, through all sorts of resources. And he started this brand called Best Ever.
Yeah,
And
conferences also.
conferences, those massive conferences.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So he also has a capital raising arm called Ashcroft Capital. Now, you might say, okay, so he started a brand, but how does it help him raise capital? Well, he raises capital just like tons of other people, but Joe can dictate his terms in a way that other people can't. So Joe can offer lower returns for his investors. He can keep more of it for himself. Why? Because he has more demand for his deals. So if he has 100 placements, if he can take on 100 investors, but he's got 200 people who want to invest with him, he can reduce the the return to them, keep more for himself because he has excess demand. Now, if you're a syndicator and you need to fill 100 spots and you only have 95 people who are interested, you're going to have to raise your return. You get to keep less because you have to attract more and more people.
Yeah.
Joe has built what he's built because he built a brand that stands for something. He appears different than other people. Like, we know his name. Like, there are a ton of syndicators who I've worked with, and if I said half of their names, people may not know, you may never have heard of them, but instantly you understood Joe Fairless. You know his conferences and everything. So that's the power of brand in real estate for a syndicator or a capital raiser.
Yeah. What content formats are most effective in reaching investors or customers? What platform? Blogs, videos, social
It
media? What are people?
it really depends on what you're selling and who you're selling to.
Yeah.
So if we think about, let's just stay in the realm of real estate. So obviously, I think education is a huge part of it because there are so many people who want to get into real estate investing, but they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Something interesting that Realty Mogul did with my help, we repositioned the company to really understand what they stood for. So they weren't just offering deals. This wasn't crowdfunding. We positioned the company as offering access to deals that you may never have had access to before. Like, so their customer is a high net worth individual, and that person, they've got a wealth planner, they've got friends and other business colleagues who are investing in interesting deals, right? So like commercial real estate that has bigger returns than residential at the time, that really great returns. Um, but people just didn't know how to get into it. Like, you sort of had to know a guy who knew a guy to get into those deals. So what Realty Mogul positioned themselves as is, we are providing access to you. Now, the reason I bring this up to answer your question is, what does your customer need that you can solve? So I always think, like, if we want to understand what your brand stands for, it's like, think about, like, this line is like what you do or what you offer better than anybody else, and take another one and what people need in that segment. You put those two things together, and at that intersection, that should be your brand. That should be what you talk about. That should be what you build on. So if you want to say, like, what type of channels work the best for, let's say, a syndicator, if you decided that your audience are high net worth individuals who understand investing,
Yeah.
but they don't have access or they don't have a way in, then you say, hey, you know what? We need to talk about access. And how do we do that? We can do that through our advertising. We can do it through blog posts showing how we're giving people access. We can do it through, so the founder of that company, her name is Jillian Hellman. She would appear on investment shows. I've seen her on Fox Business and CNBC, places where her high net worth customer is hanging out, watching this show as they, have coffee in the morning or whatever it is. You have to find what you stand for, the thing you're selling, whether it's access or something else, and then find out where your people are. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to advertise where your ideal customer isn't. And it doesn't make any sense to try and advertise to everybody. So if you're trying to attract first-time investors, well, they need education. What avenue will they need education through? Videos, incredibly helpful. Content on
Videos.
your website, long form content that doesn't just gloss over, like, hey, real estate investing is this cool thing that happens and here are the returns. Well, if I'm a first time investor, I'm like, okay, I understand that now, but, like, help me, get confidence. How do you not lose money? How do you diminish risk? How do you find the right markets? So you're going to have educational content that goes through that. Could be videos, like I said, it could be long form content. It could even be, short form content to attract people's attention. And we see short form a lot in TikToks and Reels.
You brought up websites. Are
Yeah.
they relevant anymore with so much social media platforms? Are they still needed?
Yeah,
Do people?
absolutely. And here's the reason why. So a lot of your, I don't want to say, like convincing, a lot of, like, the selling of your idea might happen in other channels. So let's say you're a syndicator and you're going to real estate conferences, real estate meetups, you're doing social media, you're on podcasts. So people might learn all they need to learn about you from those other channels, but there's
Yeah.
going to be a point where they want validation or some certainty that you are, who you say you are, what you're claiming to know, that you've gotten the results, and your website is going to pull it all together. So if I've seen 10 TikToks from you where you talk about the returns you got and it sounds awesome, I'm like, okay, this is the guy I need to invest in. I'm going to want to go and see um where I want to go see all those things together. There's an interesting psychological thing that's happening. We make decisions emotionally. Nobody makes a rational decision. It's just not scientifically possible for us to make rational decisions based on the part of the brain where decisions get made.
Yeah.
What we want to do, though, is rationalize those decisions. So after I've seen your TikToks and I heard you on a podcast and I think you're awesome and I want to invest with you, the emotional part of my brain has made a decision to invest with you. Now, the rational part of my brain is going to want some verification. So I might go to your website and see all these things like, okay, I knew I was right. Peter's the right guy for me to invest in. I click the button. But yeah, websites are still incredibly valuable to house everything. And if you're a syndicator or you're raising capital, you need a portal for people to go input their information, where they're going to send you their money, where they're going to check on their returns, where you're going to share, tax documents and all that.
Yeah, you're very active on social media. I see. What are people doing right? What are people doing wrong? I mean, clearly you scroll through. Are there some things that kind of make you cringe? Like, oh, why are you doing that? Or there's no such thing of wrong, exposure.
There's I don't think there's anything unless you're involved in a crisis, like you've done something really bad that's illegal or immoral, or you've upset a great number of people. I think I don't think there's any wrong exposure. The question comes down to whether it's effective exposure. So, um, I think there are people who are absolutely crushing it in social media. I don't believe I'm one of them. I mean, I think I do a good job. People remember who I am. People come to we get some business for our agency through the social that we do, but I don't focus on it the way others do. The thing I think people need to remember, if you're going to go and do social, you don't have to do social better than anybody else, but you have to do it in a way that's different. Because you said, like, something we all do, we just scroll, scroll, scroll.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
we stop when we see something different,
yeah,
or
yeah,
somebody who's saying something different, or who has a different kind of message or a different appearance. Like, we're like, okay, I look like everybody else, like,
yeah,
so,
yeah,
like, I don't have like blue hair or a mohawk. I don't have like a long goatee. I don't have tattoos. I'm not like, I'm a pretty regular guy from the suburbs,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like, I don't know. Do you know Alex Hermosi?
Yeah. I don't. I see him on social media. I don't know anything about him though, but he is an entrepreneur. I think he helps entrepreneurs build their brands and their
Yeah.
companies. And yeah,
Yeah. So he has a company called acquisition.com. So he helps people with their sales funnels. But there are tons of people who do that. Why is he different? Well, I think it's his appearance. He's
yeah,
like jacked. I mean, he owns a gym. I mean, he's
yeah,
like massive. He always has like a tank top on.
yeah,
He's got like big hair, a
yeah,
beard, and he always has
beard.
like one of those like nose, like those, those bandages that go on your nose to help you breathe, like a
Yeah,
breathe strip. So he just looks different, and I think that has plays a massive role in so he's intelligent too, and he's got great things to say. But we stop when we're scrolling and we watch his video because we're like, who is this madman? Like, we want to know more about him. Whereas a lot of people might have great information, but they don't get our attention because
is that trust? Like, are we stopped? Are we looking for trust? And how is he creating trust with like like that different appearance, right? Like
yeah,
we want to work with.
I don't think he's creating trust with that difference appearance, but what he is creating is the ability to get our attention. Do you want to
Just our
talk about
attention
trust?
only.
Yeah, I mean, like,
That's
once we dig in, then we start to trust him because we see he has credibility. We see he has track record. We see he has empathy for other small business owners,
uh-huh.
and we believe that he has an alignment of interest. Those are the four things that need to be present in order for trust to be built. Credibility means, can I believe that you know what you say you're talking about? Like if we're talking about real estate investing, after 30 seconds or a minute, you're going to understand whether I know what I'm talking about or not. Track record, which is my ability to do something in the future based on a past event. Like, have I closed deals? Have I helped other entrepreneurs? Empathy, that's the strongest factor that helps build trust. Empathy is our ability to be human, to understand the situation that somebody is going through so that we can help improve that. So if I have never been in a situation like yours and I don't know what you're feeling, it's going to be very difficult for me to try and help you because I don't know the right ways out of that situation, and I don't know like where you are mentally to like try and help you stand up and move forward.
Mhm.
And the last factor is alignment of interests. Alignment of interest means like you and I both want the same thing out of a situation.
Yeah. Well, I was scrolling. I learned about hooks at the last conference. I
Mhm.
see them, everyone's throwing a hook in there and all their, can you explain a hook and are they effective? Do they work? Now that I see them, now it kind of raises my, I didn't know about them before the conference. After reading about them, now I see everyone using them. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're asking good questions here. This is
Hey,
fun.
I'm not
So,
going easy.
so if we were to take any part of this conversation and cut it up into snippets, we could make it into social, like any of these topics. But we're in the middle of a conversation, right? So there's nothing at the beginning that's going to like jump out at us. So a hook is this technique that stops us in our tracks and makes us question, like, we don't know what's coming next. So we get curious and we're like,
Yeah.
oh, let me listen to see what's coming next. Too often when we're scrolling, we believe we know what somebody's talking about, what they're going to say, the point they're going to make. So we just keep scrolling because we already know that. We don't need to hear the same information that we already know. But a hook says, like, wait a second, something coming is going to be different.
Oh,
Are they effective? So when nobody was doing them and then one person started doing it, it's like, wow, we've never like, and this is all subconscious, right? Like we've never seen
yeah.
this thing, so we pay attention to it. And then when 10% of the people started doing it, it's still effective. 50%, 60% still effective. Once everybody is doing it, we need to start then finding a new technique to get stop people in their tracks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll find a different way, or I mean, some of them do get me. Like, you're doing everything wrong in life. You're like, what am I doing wrong? And then you read it, and then you're like, you're like, oh, they got me. They
Yeah.
got me there. But yeah, I'm sure someone will find another technique later on, and everybody will mimic it or copy it. Or if right now Hook is still working, to
I
get
think
people to read it.
the visual ones I think are easiest to copy, and those are the ones that become the most dated. So like sometimes there will be like a quick cut or like a blur to like like the camera angle will shift. I
Yeah,
mean, we become very cognizant of those devices. But I think the one you described when you said like you're doing everything wrong, it's this thing that sort of like changes your paradigm or like gets you to question even for like a millisecond. Like if somebody were to say, you think that orange juice is healthy, but it's killing you, and you're like,
yeah.
what? And like,
What? I
I
like
mean,
oranges to the breakfast.
right. So, but the problem is when those things aren't true, like when they can't, like when it comes across as clickbait, then we don't trust that person anymore because they don't have empathy for me. They don't have an alignment of interest. Like they're like the two things we want. Like I want to watch something and be educated. They want to trick me into watching something. We do not have an alignment of interest, so I can't trust them. So that's why we always caution people. Like we don't have any clients that are like that, but we would always say to people, make sure the thing you're selling on the other end is exactly accurately defined by the setup, so
Yeah, I find that clickbait there, that hook will do, but then it doesn't really talk about that in
yeah,
whatever they want to write about. I like that. It's not you're not trusting, so you
yeah,
should if you're not creating trust.
right.
I think you're right about that.
But I have to say, Peter, there are times when there's a hook that just has such a twist to it, and then somebody pays it off at the end.
Yeah.
And when that happens, Then we start to trust people because they took us on a journey.
Yeah.
We had an expectation and they took us there and they showed us something new. So whether you're, and this applies to everything that we do. So it's interesting that you brought this up. So let's think of hooks in social media, one thing, but let's also think about real estate investing. So if somebody sells me something, an idea of a return or a process or the arc of an investment, and they take me to that spot that they promised, but it's better, I'm going to invest with them again or tell friends about them. Telling friends about something is the highest form of success when somebody tells a friend about your business. But there are then people who will just do exactly what they said. That's fine. And then there are people going to do less than they said when things don't turn out the way that they're planning.
What let's switch over to a little more real estate here.
Yeah.
What is your current approach to real estate? What are you trying to aim after? What's your buy box? What what industry are you jumping in syndication, single family? You want to focus on short-term rentals? What's your
All of the above. No,
all above?
yeah.
Do it
So
all.
I'm not buying. So the last small building I owned. So I live outside of Boston. The last small building that I personally owned was a 6 unit building. And
Yeah,
I sold that. The all the investment I have done in the past couple of years has been in syndication.
yeah,
And the syndication. I bought a short-term rental in the fall, which I've never done that before. I'm late to the game. I just wanted to try it, and it's awesome. It's working
yeah.
so well. I enjoy being a host, but the area where I'm finding the most comfort and profit is in lending. So I've been doing private lending. I started about 4 years ago for other investors. The reason I love these types of investments is that they're short term. So they might be like 3 months to 18 months at the longest. I set the terms. I get to interview the person that I'm loaning to. I underwrite their deal. I vet it. I've got to be aligned with what they want. I'm in the markets that they're I'm in the markets that I trust. Um,
That
so
person comes to you, how do you like if you have a single family, short term, commercial, whatever, apartments in the case, like how do you underwrite like so many different? How do you like? I mean, you're not how you if you wear so many different hats, how do you make sure you underwrite that correctly in the
yeah,
lendings? Is
yeah.
that is that
So
is that a little art in itself?
it is. It's also trusting the person. So in private lending, or I guess in any kind of lending, we have
Yeah,
two major risk factors. We've got the property
yeah,
and we've got the borrower. I underwrite the borrower
yeah.
to a degree, but the property is actually more important to understand. So the operator, we need to know that he's done this before and he has a game plan, a strategy, and we have to see that it's valid. So we're going to look at the property and we're going to say, okay, here's what he's buying it for. And he's buying it for like 60% market value, which is awesome.
Sure.
Um, and then here's his plan to invest, $80,000. And then once he does that, he believes the ARV, the sale price or the renovated
After
price
repair
will
value.
be X. After repaired value will be X. Then we go and look to find comps on the market and say, oh, wait, can it support that? Is the area hot enough where a house at, $300,000 will sell compared to other houses that are 280 because, well, we've got nicer finishes, we've just remodeled, we've got a new roof, backyard, things like that. That's how we do that. I haven't done any private lending on any commercial buildings, but I'm used to underwriting those from the syndications that I've been involved in. And to answer your question, a lot of what I use are like some tools,
Yeah.
some sophisticated spreadsheets, gathering information, putting those things in, and then you have to make a gut decision at the end. Do I trust the operator? Do I trust the market? Because like that's something none of us have a control over, like the market. But the private lending, I've just had a great time doing that. I'm lending to flippers here in the Massachusetts area, also North Carolina. Most of what I'm doing is in North Carolina, but I'm actually thinking about starting a lending business branching off instead of just doing private lending like here and there, but like starting
Yeah.
to take on investors' capital and lend it out to guys who are either doing, development or flips. So what keep an eye out for that. Stace is going to come back on your
Oh,
show with his
that's right.
lending business.
I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have done some capital raising. Is that are you still doing that? Are you still raising for syndication deals? Uh,
Yeah, I'm actually backing away slightly from that just because conditions in the apartment syndication world are changing.
uh-huh.
Um, so, like, I would say any deal I got involved in before 22, I think is fine. Like 22 or earlier is fine. Anything from 23 onward, like some of them have stopped paying their distributions. Some of them have had capital calls. Some of them are, I wouldn't say they're in distress, but you can see the possibility for distress down the road. If
Yeah.
somebody was involved in short-term rental, no, excuse me, if they had like short-term financing, short-term debt, right? If their numbers were tight, if there was a lot of new inventory coming on the market after they purchased. So I'm starting to back away a little bit from syndication, but there are lots of opportunities for syndication coming up because you're going to find a lot of distressed properties. You're already finding distressed properties, but I think things are going to get worse. Interest rates have not come down the way we thought they were going to this year, like 3 rates, 6 rate cuts. We thought that was going to happen. Like none of that's happening yet. So you're going to see operators who didn't plan well, they're going to need to do something because they're going to be in a tight spot. So they're going to be deals coming up.
That's some mindset questions here. What are your thoughts about failure? When you hear the word failure, when something happens negative, in your own life, how do you navigate that? It always happens. It has to happen if you want success. So how do you go about how do you use your mindset to
Yeah.
what's
So failure is something we face in all aspects of our lives.
right?
Um, I think it's a matter of the story you're telling yourself about the failure. So, and I say story because like in our brains, a lot of what I do is feels like psychology, right? But in our brains, like we're gonna tell ourselves a reality, and our brain is gonna believe that, and we're going to act as if that's the reality. We can change that story, and we can say, um, so we might tell ourselves, "Hey, this project is failing, and it's because of my employees, it's because of the economy, it's because of my clients, it's because of whoever." And then
Whatever.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna whatever, but I'm going to say I can't affect all of those things. I can't change all of those things. So I'm going to spiral into that failure. If I change that story and I ask myself, what are the real facts? I start to see that I have more control over things, over my decisions, over my actions, over my hiring, over my firing, over my, appetite for risk. I start to change how I approach failure to turn the ship around and head toward success. I think it all comes down to like the story that I tell myself. And if I'm telling myself a story based on facts, because all day long, you and I and everybody listening right now, we tell ourselves stories based on our opinions rather than on the facts. We have to look at the facts and say, if I want success out of this, what do I need to do differently? What incremental changes can I make? I have to like focus on the way out of this, not the way I got into it.
Yeah. What here's a fun question I like to ask. So
Hmm.
if you were to start from scratch today, you were given $100,000, you know nothing. Uh, what would you
Well,
do? How would you put that money to work? Actually, you know everything, all the knowledge you've built up, you know. But
yeah.
what would you do different? How would you start that?
Hmm. But well, okay, so just the answer. So you mean going into business for myself or like working for
Yeah, if
somebody?
if if you
Okay.
lost your company today, they threw you on the streets,
Yeah.
gave you $100,000, and you had to do something with it. How would you start off? How would you
I would
invest it? How would you invest it in yourself, in a company, in real estate, in your mind? what would the first thing you do? Or
Yeah, I would look for something that's going to cash flow me something every month.
yeah.
I would probably do private lending. I'd probably lend that money at, 12, 13%.
Hmm.
Um, if I couldn't afford, or if I
Oh,
could
or
find, or if I could find a property that I could get into for, I got three things. So the first one would be private lending. The second one would be if I find like a duplex or something that that I could get into for that amount of money, if it had good cash flow.
yeah.
Or the
Or
third thing would be I would look for a business for sale that I could buy for, let's say, 10% down. So let's say that I had $100,000 and there was a $1 million business for sale. I can get an
right.
SBA loan and it cash flowed better than those other two options.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. And I don't know what that category would be, but I'd have to think about it. But that's something I would do. I would not take that money, put it in the bank, and go get a job working for somebody else. I will
Right.
never work for somebody else again. And anybody who's listening, everybody should be their own entrepreneur, be your own boss, because you're the only person who's going to care about your future the way you should.
Ah, I like that. I like that. If someone's looking to rebrand and connect with you, learn about investment, learn about what you do, how can they reach you, Stace?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Stace Caseria. So you can just Google Stace Caseria. You could also go to my company's website, trustdeepbranding.com, or you can just look up stacecaseria.com. It redirects to Trust Deep. And if you're looking for me and you can't find me, get in touch with Peter. And Peter knows me.
I'll get to
Yeah, yeah.
you. Right on. Thanks for coming on, Stace.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. This is great. I
Great.
appreciate all the good in-depth questions. I'm glad that you didn't go easy on me.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.